Hello guys, welcome to this tutorial. Before we get started, I want to let you know that you can find all the code example and resources we'll be using today in the GitHub Repository linked in the video description below. This repository serves as a valuable companion to the tutorial, allowing you to follow along, experiment, and explore the code on your own. Hello guys and welcome back. Today we will see in details the options documentation page, and we will see how we can set up and modify some behaviors in our NextAuth application. Let's discover the options that NextAuth offers to us. Actually, we already set many options with the previous chapters. So all the options that we discovered before, callbacks, events, providers, and much more. So today I want to show you other options that can help us to modify the NextAuth behaviors according to our specific needs. You can find anyway a good documentation about option in this page. In the NextAuth official documentation, we already see what is NextAuth URL, the secret, the internal is for specific case, like if provide server-side code we use this instead of NextAuth URL. It's like alternative to the NextAuth URL. Let's discover, for example, the session option that we can actually apply here in this part of the option. And the session option actually give us the freedom to change, for example, the max age expressed in second that in default is, I think, 1 day. And we can change it here and we can specify max age should be, for example, 30, 34, 60, 60. So this is a 30 seconds max age for our session. So if someone log in, it will be authenticated for 30 days. Actually, it's not recommended. Usually 1 day is enough. Or also from 1 to 7 days, depending on your application and your specific need. We have also another option here that is update age. The update age actually is how frequently to write to database to extend a session. So actually you have to use it to limit write operation, set to 0 to always update the database. This option is ignored if you are using JSON Web Tokens. Okay, so depending on the strategy, our strategy is default JWT, but if we change the strategy here with database to database, we will see later with the adapters, every time I check a session, I connect to the database, and here I can update the age that the system needs to write to the database. So we don't need for now. And here we can also change the default logic of the generate session token. So the session token is usually either a random ID, unique ID, or string, and is created by NextAuth automatically. But if you want to change the logic to create this ID, you can integrate here with the generate session token, and you can create a new one here that could be, for example, we want to return something like a random UUID dot, or if doesn't have, we can create a random byte and make it like a random byte here. It can be like a 32 and transform to 64 based or X string. So actually we can integrate the session, the logic to generate a token as we want, as our need. Let's go to another important option that actually is about the JWT. So the JWT, we also can set the max age here depending on our need, but JSON the web tokens can be used for. So the maximum age NextAuth is in second, and the default JWT is the session max age. So actually have to be the same usually, but you can change anyway also the JWT and make it different than the session max age. So we can change here, for example, we want to change the JWT every 10 days. And another option is that you can define your own encode and decode function for signing and encryption. We can implement here our specific logic to encrypt, to encode our token. So If we have the token, we have the secret, we implement here our logic and we return the final encoded string. So it's going to be an encoded string here. And for the code is the same as the encode. We can use the same, of course, params and everything. And we will return actually the decoded object here. Okay, so if we get from the documentation, the decode is similar. We have the params, the token, the secret, the promise can give us back a JWT or null if we don't have, and if we return, depending on our decryption logic, we can return back a JWT object or null if the decoding failed. So depend on our logic here. And here we go. We don't need this one for now. And yeah, this is some options. And actually we have also other option debug. Debug actually can be false or true. Actually the default is false. If you want to set the debug to true, is to enable debug messages for authentication and database operation. So we can set the logger here. The default is console, but if we want to change the login to for example, to another login service, to a third-party login service, we can specify here. We can say all the error log is going to be with call and metadata is going to log to another service that is log.error and code and metadata. So this prevent to log on our console but to another service. And of course log we have to change. We don't use log from console anymore, but like a third part, like another login service that depending on our request. So the same for error, the same for warn, the same, for example, debug purpose. I want to show you how to create actually a JWT helper. Okay, so the JWT helper actually is an API route that we are going to create to retrieve the JWT token in plain text in any moment. So we can retrieve the JWT depending on the session, depending on the request that the client make. And after we get this JWT, we decrypt with the secret and we get back from the API route directly to the client side. In this way, we can interact with the JWT in any moment. For example, it's useful in some scenario when I want to get the JWT in specific case and interact with him and unblock, for example, some specific content on the client side. We saw in the previous chapter that also we can decrypt directly the JWT from the session, from the access token directly from the cookies. So this is another way to get the token. We can get from the cookies and decrypt directly on the client side, but actually I really don't like that approach. For security reason, it's better to retrieve directly from this API, so all the encryption will be done under the hood directly on the server side. So we create a new API route here that we call JWT helper, and here we go. We create the route inside, that is route.ts, and here we are going to, okay, for the JWT helper we need the request object and we need to interact with the response. So we are going to import the next response module from the next server that's going to send back our JSON token. So we import the next response, and from our next server, okay, we import the helper that is called get token, okay, from our next auth JWT. This is our helper. Of course, we need to decode to validate and to decode the token. We need the secret that actually is our environment variable that we already declare in our option, that is a NextAuth secret that is here, and we create the function export async function, is here. It's like a normal get API. This is the request object that we need in our case. And here we go. We get the token here, waiting for the get token service, get token. And inside the get token, we are going to put an object with two parameters, that is request and is the secret. This method will get the request that include all the information of the session, included the access token encoded, and thanks to the secret one that we get from the server side, we are going to decode and give back to our client request. So the token is here, we console, we want to see what we are getting here. We want to see the token here directly to see if it's decrypted well, and we return finally our client that requests the token. We give back the response that's going to be in JSON format, and we specify that the new token is this one. Okay, this should work. Let's launch our dev. Wait a little bit. So the idea is that if I'm not authenticated, the response that I get back is a null token, because if I'm not authenticated, the session NextAuth didn't create a token, so it's going to be null. But if I'm authenticated, I will get back the token in the plain text, already decoded with the secret. We get into our page. If I want to get the token if I'm not authenticated, let's see what happened. Is our API JWT helper here. Oh, sorry. Mistake here. Is helper. Here we go. What we get is a null token because I'm not authenticated. So let's go back to our sign-in page. I want to authenticate. Let's go. I'm authenticated. Sign as Sam Jam. Okay. Let's go now into our API route. So what I'm sending now to this route is exactly this value that we catch from the cookies here. We giving back the session token from this call, from the request, and the server, the JWT helper will decode it and send me back from the API route as a response in plain JSON object. So let's see. We sign in. Let's get it. Protected API. Now is the JWT helper. Let's see if I get back my token. Here we go. I get the token. So I get from the client side. I can do wherever I want with this data, interact with the component on the client. So that's all with this session. I hope that you enjoyed this chapter. And with the next chapter, we will discover how to integrate the DynamoDB NextAuth from scratch. We're going to see the adapter, but I prefer to show you how to integrate from scratch and start to interact with a real database, create user, update user, or check the user in the sign-in process and response with a real authenticated user. We have reached the end of this video tutorial, and I genuinely hope you've enjoyed its content. If it has been helpful to you, please show your support by liking the video and sharing it with your friends on social media. If you haven't already, I warmly invite you to subscribe to my channel to stay updated on upcoming lessons. Don't forget to check out my website, devergolabs.com, where you will find a plethora of interesting programming content. You can also send me collaboration requests and explore all the programming services we offer. Your participation and support are crucial in my growing and to grow this community and providing you with even more valuable resources. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here with us, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video tutorial.